The day I discovered my car was gone, I wasn't even supposed to be home. I should have been at work, managing the evening shift at the Italian restaurant where I'd been employed for the past 3 years. But a migraine had forced me to call in sick, and as I stood in our driveway staring at the empty spot where my Honda Civic should have been, confusion quickly morphed into panic. "Mum!" I called out, rushing back into the house. "Mum, did you move my car?" My mother was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables with the precision of someone avoiding eye contact. At 49, Sarah Matthews still possessed the kind of beauty that turned heads, but today her face was tight with tension. "Your father and I needed to talk to you about that, Olivia," she said, putting down the knife. "Is Rebecca home yet?" Rebecca? Of course this involved my younger sister. "No," I replied, my stomach knotting. "Where's my car, Mum?" She sighed, wiping her hands on a dishcloth. "Let's wait for your father. He'll be home in about 20 minutes. Those 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. I paced our living room, trying to quell the dread rising within me. The living room was a shrine to Rebecca's achievements, dance trophies, academic awards, and countless framed photos documenting her transformation from adorable toddler to stunning 22-year-old. My own achievements, my business degree earned while working full-time, my recent promotion, were relegated to a small shelf in the corner. I heard the garage door open and my father's heavy footsteps. At 52, John Matthews had begun to show his age, silver streaking his once dark hair, lines etched deep around his eyes. He was still in his shirt and tie from his job at the insurance firm. "Olivia?" he said, surprise evident in his voice. "I thought you were working tonight." "Where's my car, Dad?" I asked, cutting straight to the chase. He exchanged a look with my mother, who had followed him into the living room. "Sit down, honey." I remained standing. "Just tell me what's going on." My father cleared his throat. "We sold your car." The words hit like a physical blow. "You what?" "We sold your car," he repeated. "Rebecca's wedding is in 3 months, and we're short on funds for the venue deposit." I struggled to process his words. "You sold my car, the car I bought with my money, to pay for Rebecca's wedding." "We'll pay you back," my mother interjected quickly. "After the wedding. You know how important this is to your sister." Rebecca had been engaged to Tyler, the son of a prominent local family, for 6 months. The wedding plans had quickly spiraled from modest to extravagant, with my parents indulging her every whim. "How?" I demanded, my voice rising. "How did you even sell it? The title was in my name." My father had the decency to look uncomfortable. "You left the title in the filing cabinet. I signed the transfer papers." "You forged my signature," I whispered. Shock rendering me almost speechless. "It's not forgery when it's family," my mother said dismissively. "And it's not like you need the car right now. You can walk to work and we can drive you anywhere else you need to go." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had saved for 3 years to buy that car, working double shifts and foregoing vacations. It represented my independence, my first major adult purchase. "How much did you get for it?" I asked, my voice hollow. $7,800, my father replied. The Kelley Blue Book value was higher, but we needed to sell quickly. The car was worth at least $12,000. I felt physically ill. "That car was my property," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "You had no right." "Olivia," my mother sighed. "You need to think about someone besides yourself for once. Your sister is getting married. This is the most important day of her life." Before I could respond, the front door burst open and Rebecca swept in, a whirlwind of energy and designer clothes. At 22, my sister was breathtaking, tall and willowy with our mother's high cheekbones and our father's startling blue eyes. Today, she was practically glowing. "They confirmed the venue," she squealed, rushing to hug our parents. "The Bellevue Hotel ballroom is officially ours for June 12th. My parents beamed at her, and for a moment it was as if I wasn't even there. Then Rebecca noticed me. "Liv, did you hear? We got the Bellevue. Tyler's parents are going to be so impressed." I looked at my sister. This person I'd grown up with, shared a bathroom with for 18 years, taught to ride a bike and apply eyeliner. In that moment, she felt like a stranger. "Congratulations," I said flatly. "Paid for with my car." Rebecca's smile faltered. "What?" "Mom and Dad sold my car to pay for your venue deposit." Rebecca looked at our parents. Confusion evident on her face. "You said you were taking money from your savings account." "We did," my father said quickly. "But it wasn't quite enough. We just needed a little extra." Rebecca turned back to me, her expression softening. "Oh, Liv, I'm sorry about your car, but think how beautiful the wedding will be. And you'll be my maid of honor. You'll look amazing in the dress I've picked out." The dress she'd picked out without consulting me, the $350 dress I was expected to pay for myself. "I need some air," I muttered, grabbing my jacket and heading for the door. "Olivia," my mother called after me. "Don't be dramatic. We're family. We make sacrifices for each other." I paused at the door. Funny how I'm always the one making the sacrifices. I walked for hours that evening, trying to clear my head. Without a car, I was limited to the radius of my feet, which felt like a perfect metaphor for my life, constrained by other people's decisions. By the time I returned home, the house was quiet. I slipped into my bedroom, avoiding any further confrontation. My bedroom was the smallest in the house, a fact that had never bothered me until Rebecca left for college, and my parents converted her larger room into a guest room that she still claimed whenever she visited. My space was minimalist by necessity rather than choice, with just enough room for a twin bed, a desk, and a small dresser. I sat on my bed and pulled out my phone, opening my banking app. After 3 years of saving, I had accumulated nearly $30,000, money earmarked for a down payment on a condo. I had been planning to move out within the next 6 months, something I hadn't yet shared with my parents. As I stared at the balance, a text from my best friend Megan popped up. "How was work tonight? Still on for brunch tomorrow?" I hadn't told Megan about my car yet. Saying it out loud, or in this case, typing it out, would make it real. "Something came up," I replied. "Need to talk. Brunch is perfect." Sleep eluded me that night. I kept thinking about the car, not just as transportation, but as a symbol of my independence. And deeper than that, I thought about what my parents' actions revealed about how they saw me. As an afterthought, someone whose needs and property were secondary to Rebecca's wants. The next morning, I left early, before anyone else was awake. The walk to the cafe where I was meeting Megan took 45 minutes, another stark reminder of what I'd lost. Megan was already there when I arrived. Her red hair pulled into a messy bun, nursing a large coffee. She took one look at my face and pushed a second cup toward me. "Okay, spill. What happened?" I told her everything, the words tumbling out in a rush of hurt and anger. Megan listened, her expression growing increasingly outraged. "They sold your car without your permission," she exclaimed when I finished. "Liv, that's not just unfair. It's illegal. That's literally theft." "They don't see it that way," I said miserably. "To them, it's just family helping family." "And when was the last time they helped you like this?" Megan demanded. "When was the last time they sold Rebecca's stuff to pay for something you needed?" We both knew the answer. "Never. You need to stand up for yourself," Megan continued. "At minimum, they need to pay you back the full value of the car, not just what they got for it. And you should report the title transfer as fraudulent." "I can't do that to my parents," I protested. "They'd be furious." "They should be furious with themselves," Megan countered. "Not with you for holding them accountable." I sipped my coffee, considering her words. I don't want to destroy my relationship with my family. Megan reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "Liv, honey, they're the ones damaging the relationship, not you." Deep down, I knew she was right. This wasn't the first time my parents had prioritized Rebecca over me, just the most egregious example. There was the time they'd missed my college graduation because Rebecca had a dance recital, or when they'd used the money they'd promised for my textbooks to buy Rebecca a new laptop because hers was last year's model. "I need to think," I said finally. "Figure out my next move." "Whatever you decide, I'm here for you," Megan assured me, "and if you need a ride to work, just call. It's on my way." After brunch, I walked to a nearby park and found a bench overlooking a small pond. The day was warm for March, the first hints of spring evident in the buds on the trees. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app again, staring at my savings. I had worked so hard for that money, picking up extra shifts, tutoring on the side, living frugally while my friends splurged on clothes and trips. The thought of using it to replace a car that had been stolen from me, by my own parents, made my blood boil. A new text message appeared on my screen. It was from Rebecca. "Hey sis, need your measurements for the bridesmaid dress ASAP. Also, Mum says you were super upset last night. Don't worry about the car. You can borrow mine any time." Rebecca's car was a brand new Audi, a graduation gift from our parents 2 years ago. I had received a watch for my college graduation. I didn't reply to her text. Instead, I called a lawyer. The consultation with Janet Hernandez was free, and she listened patiently as I explained the situation. When I finished, she leaned forward, her expression serious. "What your parents did constitutes fraud and theft," she confirmed. "You have several options. You could file a police report, which could lead to criminal charges. You could sue them in civil court for the full value of the vehicle plus damages, or you could try to resolve this within the family." "I don't want to see my parents arrested," I said quickly. "Most people don't," she acknowledged. "But you deserve justice, and they broke the law. At minimum, they should reimburse you the full market value of the car, not just what they sold it for." I nodded, trying to process everything. "Think about what outcome you want," Janet advised. "Then we can discuss how to get there." What did I want? The answer came to me with surprising clarity. I wanted respect. I wanted my parents to see me as an adult with rights and boundaries, not just as an extension of themselves or a supporting character in Rebecca's story. I thanked Janet and promised to be in touch once I'd made a decision. As I walked back toward home, my phone rang. It was my boss, Tony, checking to see if I'd be in for my shift that evening. "I'll be there," I assured him. "But I might need a ride home afterward. My car is unavailable." "No problem," Tony replied. "My nephew Marco is working tonight too. He lives near you, right? I'm sure he can drop you off." I felt a rush of gratitude for Tony, who had always been fair and supportive. When I'd started at the restaurant as a server, he'd quickly recognised my business acumen and moved me into a management role. Now I handled scheduling, inventory, and helped with the books. It wasn't my dream job, but it paid well and gave me valuable experience. When I arrived home, my mother was in the living room with Rebecca, surrounded by bridal magazines and fabric swatches. "There you are," my mother said when I walked in. "Rebecca needs your measurements for the bridesmaid dress." "I'm not going to be in the wedding," I said quietly. Both of them looked up, startled. "What are you talking about?" Rebecca demanded. "Of course you're in the wedding. You're my sister." "Sisters don't let their parents steal from each other," I replied. "Oh, for heaven's sake," my mother sighed. "No one stole anything. We're family." "Being family doesn't give you the right to take my property," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "The car was mine. The title was in my name. What you did was illegal." "Illegal?" my mother repeated, her voice rising. "We're your parents." "Yes, and parents should respect their children's boundaries and property," I countered. "You didn't." Rebecca stood up. Her face flushed. "This is about my wedding, isn't it? You've always been jealous of me." I looked at my sister, really looked at her. In her designer jeans and cashmere sweater, her perfectly highlighted hair and manicured nails, she was the picture of privilege. Not just financial privilege, though our parents had certainly provided that, but the privilege of being the favourite child, unquestioned, unchallenged, unchecked. "This isn't about jealousy," I said evenly. "This is about right and wrong. What Mum and Dad did was wrong." "So what are you going to do?" my mother challenged. "Sue us." The fact that she jumped straight to legal action told me she knew exactly how serious their transgression had been. "I haven't decided yet," I answered honestly. "But I want to be reimbursed for the full value of my car, $12,000, not the $7,800 you sold it for, and I want an apology." My mother laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humour. You want us to apologize for helping your sister, for making sure her wedding day is perfect? I want you to apologize for taking something that belonged to me without my permission, I clarified, for treating my property as if it were yours to dispose of. This is ridiculous, Rebecca interjected. Mum, Dad, just give her the money if it's such a big deal. I don't want this drama before my wedding. We don't have $12,000, my mother snapped. That's why we sold the car in the first place. I crossed my arms. Then I guess you shouldn't have committed fraud. The word hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. You wouldn't, my mother whispered. I don't want to, I admitted, but I will if I have to. The front door opened and my father walked in, stopping short when he sensed the tension in the room. What's going on? He asked cautiously. Your daughter is threatening to sue us, my mother informed him, her voice trembling with anger. My father's face paled. Olivia, surely we can work this out as a family. That's what I'm trying to do, I said. I'm giving you the chance to make this right before I take legal action. Legal action, he repeated, sinking into an armchair. For selling your car? For selling my car without my permission, I corrected. For forging my signature on the title transfer. For fraud. A heavy silence fell over the room. Rebecca was the first to break it. This is insane, she declared. I'm not dealing with this right now. I have a final dress fitting tomorrow. She gathered her wedding materials and stormed out, the front door slamming behind her. My parents stared after her, then turned their attention back to me. I can't believe you would do this to your own family, my mother said, her voice low and accusatory. I can't believe you would do what you did to me, I countered. My father ran a hand over his face. What do you want, Olivia? I told you. $12,000, the full value of my car, and an apology. And if we can't pay you right now? He asked. Then we can work out a payment plan, I replied. But I want it in writing, and I want it legally binding. My mother made a noise of disbelief. You don't trust us? I met her gaze steadily. Would you? If you were me? She looked away first. I need to get ready for work, I said, turning toward my room. Think about what I said. I'd rather resolve this within the family, but I will take legal action if necessary. In my room, I changed into my work uniform with shaking hands. The confrontation had left me drained but also strangely empowered. For the first time in my life, I had stood up to my parents, setting a boundary and demanding respect. My phone buzzed with a text from Marco, Tony's nephew, offering to pick me up for our shift. I gratefully accepted, then sat on my bed, trying to collect myself before he arrived. Another text came through. This one from Rebecca. Way to make everything about you as usual. Thanks for ruining my wedding planning experience. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say that wouldn't escalate the situation further. When Marco's car pulled up outside, I slipped out without saying goodbye to my parents. The evening shift at Bella Notte was busy, which was a blessing. It left me no time to dwell on the confrontation with my family. Tony noticed my distraction, but didn't press when I said I was dealing with some personal issues. By the time Marco dropped me off at home, it was after midnight. The house was dark and quiet. I made my way to my room, exhausted, but too keyed up to sleep. I lay in bed, scrolling through apartment listings on my phone, calculating how soon I could move out if I needed to use some of my savings for a new car. The next morning, I woke to the sound of hushed, angry voices. My parents arguing in the kitchen. I strained to hear. We have to do something, my mother was saying. She's serious about this. What do you suggest? My father replied, his voice tense. We don't have $12,000. We could take it from Rebecca's wedding fund, my mother suggested reluctantly. And tell Rebecca what? Sorry, no string quartet at your reception because your sister is throwing a tantrum. I flinched at my father's characterization but continued listening. This is a mess, John, my mother sighed. Why did we think selling her car was a good idea? Because Rebecca needed the venue deposit and we were out of options, he replied. And honestly, Sarah, when has Olivia ever stood up to us before? I didn't think she'd make such a fuss. Their words stung. Confirming what I'd long suspected, they were used to me acquiescing, to putting my needs last, to accepting whatever scraps of attention and consideration they deigned to give me. Not anymore. I got up, dressed, and prepared to face another day without a car. As I walked into the kitchen, my parents fell silent, watching me warily. "Good morning," I said, reaching for the coffee pot. "Olivia," my father began, "your mother and I have been talking about the car situation." I poured my coffee and turned to face them. "And? We acknowledge that we should have discussed it with you first," he said carefully. "But you need to understand our position. Rebecca's wedding is in 3 months and the Bellevue required a substantial deposit to hold the date." "I understand your position perfectly," I replied. "Rebecca's wants are more important to you than my needs or my rights." "That's not fair," my mother protested. "Isn't it?" I challenged. "When have you ever sold something of Rebecca's to pay for something I needed?" They exchanged uncomfortable glances but didn't answer. "That's what I thought," I said, taking my coffee and heading for the door. "I have errands to run. Let me know when you've made a decision about reimbursing me." I spent the day at the library, using their computers to research my options. I learned that in our state, selling someone else's vehicle without their permission was a Class D felony, punishable by up to 4 years in prison and fines of up to $10,000. The thought of my parents facing such penalties made me sick, but so did their cavalier attitude toward my property and autonomy. While at the library, I also submitted applications for several apartments I could afford if I dipped into my savings. The thought of moving out sooner than planned was both frightening and exhilarating. By the time I walked home, I had a clearer picture of my options and my resolve was stronger than ever. I would not back down on this. Too many times in the past, I had swallowed my hurt and resentment for the sake of family harmony. No more. My parents were in the living room when I arrived, along with Rebecca and her fiancé, Tyler. Tyler was tall and conventionally handsome, with the confident bearing of someone who had never worried about money a day in his life. His family owned a chain of successful car dealerships across the state. "Olivia," my father said, his tone falsely cheerful. "Good, you're home. We were just discussing some wedding details with Rebecca and Tyler." "Don't let me interrupt," I said, moving toward my room. "Actually," Tyler spoke up, "I think this concerns you too." I paused, curious despite myself. Tyler smiled at me, all perfect white teeth and practiced charm. "Rebecca told me about the misunderstanding with your car. I want to help resolve this situation." "It's not a misunderstanding," I corrected. "My parents sold my car without my permission." Tyler nodded, his expression sympathetic. "A regrettable situation, certainly. Here's what I'm proposing. My father's dealership will provide you with a new vehicle, a significant upgrade from your previous car, as a gift." I stared at him, caught off guard. "A gift?" "Yes," he confirmed. "A brand new Toyota Camry. It's yours, no strings attached." I looked at my parents, who were watching me expectantly, and at Rebecca, who was beaming at her fiancé as if he'd just solved world hunger. "That's very generous," I said carefully. "But why would you do that?" Tyler's smile never wavered. "We're going to be family, Olivia, and families help each other." There it was again, that invocation of family as justification for overriding my autonomy. But this time it came with a bribe. "I appreciate the offer," I said, "but I can't accept it." The smiles around the room faltered. "Why not?" Rebecca demanded. "It's a brand new car." "Liv, much nicer than your old Honda." "Because this isn't about the car," I explained. "It's about respect, about acknowledging that what happened was wrong." "We're trying to make it right," my father interjected. "Tyler's offer is extremely generous." "It's a band-aid on a bullet wound," I replied. "And it doesn't address the real issue." Tyler's smile had cooled several degrees. "And what exactly is the real issue?" "The real issue is that my parents sold my property without my consent," I said. "The real issue is that no one in this family seems to think that was a problem." "We've apologized," my mother said defensively. "No, you haven't," I pointed out. Not once have you actually said you're sorry or acknowledged that what you did was wrong. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Finally, Tyler cleared his throat. Well, the offer stands if you change your mind, he said. Now about the rehearsal dinner. I've spoken with the manager at the Capitol Grill. And just like that, they moved on, as if my concerns were a minor inconvenience to be brushed aside in favour of more pressing matters, like which premium steakhouse would host the rehearsal dinner. I retreated to my room, a mixture of emotions churning within me. Part of me was tempted to accept Tyler's offer. A new car would solve my immediate transportation problems, and it would be one less battle to fight. But another part of me, a stronger part, knew that accepting would be capitulating, allowing them to buy their way out of accountability. My phone buzzed with a text from Megan. Any updates? I called her instead of texting back, needing to hear a friendly voice. I told her about the confrontation with my parents and Tyler's offer. A bribe, Megan said flatly when I finished. That's what it is. They're trying to buy your silence. That's what it feels like, I agreed. So what are you going to do? I sighed, rubbing my temples where a headache was forming. I don't know yet, but I'm not backing down. Good, Megan said firmly. And whatever you decide, I've got your back. After we hung up, I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling. The same ceiling I'd stared at as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult. I'd lived in this house my entire life, but suddenly it felt foreign, unwelcoming. A knock on my door interrupted my thoughts. Olivia. It was my father. Can we talk? I sat up. Come in. He entered, closing the door behind him. He looked tired, the lines in his face more pronounced than usual. Tyler's offer is very generous, he began. I know, I acknowledged, but it doesn't address the real problem. My father sighed, sinking down onto the edge of my desk chair. What would address the real problem, Olivia? What do you want from us? I considered the question carefully. I want you to understand why what you did was wrong. I want you to acknowledge that I have the same rights as Rebecca. I want you to see me, Dad. His brow furrowed. See you. Yes, I said, my voice catching. Really see me. Not as an afterthought or as Rebecca's sister, but as a person in my own right. My father was silent for a long moment, his eyes studying me as if seeing me for the first time. I do see you, Olivia. Do you? I challenged. When was the last time you attended an event that was important to me? When was the last time you asked about my goals, my dreams? When was the last time you put my needs ahead of Rebecca's? He didn't have an answer, which was an answer in itself. I've been saving to move out, I told him. I have enough for a down payment on a condo. I was planning to tell you in a few months, but now... I shrugged. You're moving out? He seemed genuinely surprised. But why? This is your home. Is it? I asked softly. Or is it Rebecca's home, where I'm allowed to stay as long as I don't take up too much space or ask for too much attention? My words seemed to hit him like physical blows. He flinched, then slumped in the chair. We never meant to make you feel that way, he said finally. Intentions don't matter as much as actions, I replied. And your actions have consistently shown me where I stand in this family. He was quiet for a long time, his eyes fixed on the floor. When he finally looked up, there was a new awareness in his gaze. I'm sorry, Olivia, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Truly sorry. Not just for the car, but for all of it. It was the first genuine apology I'd ever received from either of my parents. I felt tears prick at my eyes, but blinked them back. Thank you, I said simply. What can I do to make this right? He asked. I still need to be reimbursed for my car, I said. The full value, not just what you sold it for. He nodded. We'll figure it out, even if it means scaling back some of the wedding expenses. I raised an eyebrow, surprised by his willingness to consider this. And I'd like you to talk to Mom, I added. She needs to understand why this was wrong too. I will, he promised. It might take her some time. She's always had a blind spot when it comes to Rebecca. I've noticed, I said dryly. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. I suppose you have. He stood, looking awkward and uncertain. I'll let you get some rest. We can talk more tomorrow. After he left, I sat on my bed, processing what had just happened. It wasn't a complete resolution, but it was a start. The first crack in the foundation of favouritism that had structured our family dynamics for as long as I could remember. My phone buzzed with another text, this one from Tony. Hey, Olivia, can you open tomorrow? Ashley called in sick. I texted back my agreement, then set an alarm. Without a car, I'd need to leave extra early to walk to the restaurant. As I prepared for bed, I felt a strange mix of emotions, sadness and anger still, but also a newfound sense of strength and purpose. For the first time in my life, I had stood up for myself, and the world hadn't ended. In fact, it felt like it was just beginning to open up. The next few weeks brought significant changes. True to his word, my father spoke to my mother, who reluctantly acknowledged that selling my car had been wrong. They worked out a payment plan, agreeing to reimburse me $1,000 per month until the full $12,000 was paid. Rebecca was less understanding. She accused me of trying to ruin her wedding and complained bitterly when our parents informed her that some of the more extravagant elements of the celebration, the string quartet, the champagne fountain, the custom-designed escort cards, would need to be scaled back. It's not fair, she wailed during one particularly dramatic family dinner. This is my special day. And it will still be special, my father assured her, just perhaps not quite as extravagant as we originally planned. Because of her, Rebecca spat, glaring at me. No, my father corrected firmly, because your mother and I made a mistake, and now we're correcting it. It was the first time I could remember him standing up to Rebecca, and from the shocked expression on her face, it was the first time she could remember it too. In the meantime, I continued saving and applied for a car loan. With my good credit score and stable income, I was approved for a reasonable rate. 3 weeks after my car was sold, I purchased a used but well-maintained Toyota Corolla, not as nice as my Honda had been, but reliable transportation nonetheless. I also signed a lease on a small apartment about 15 minutes from the restaurant. It wasn't the condo I'd been saving for, but it was clean, safe, and most importantly, mine. I planned to move in at the beginning of May, giving me time to acquire the necessities for independent living. My parents were surprised when I announced my impending move, but after our recent confrontations, they didn't try to talk me out of it. My mother even offered to help me shop for furniture, a peace offering I cautiously accepted. As for the wedding, I agreed to be in Rebecca's bridal party, not as maid of honour, a role that went to her college roommate after Rebecca decided I was too difficult to work with, but as a bridesmaid. I paid for my own dress, as expected, but drew the line at contributing to the extravagant bachelorette weekend in Miami that the maid of honour was planning. I can't afford it, I said simply when Rebecca protested. I'm saving for my new place. For once, she didn't push. The week before I was set to move, I was working late at the restaurant, helping Tony close up. We'd had a busy Friday night, and I was double-checking the day's receipts when he sat down across from me. You've seemed different these past few weeks, he observed. More confident. I looked up from the ledger, surprised by his comment. I guess I am. It suits you, he said with an approving nod. Whatever caused the change, I'm glad to see it. I considered how much to share, then decided on the truth. I stood up to my family about something important. It was hard, but necessary. Tony nodded sagely. Family is complicated. Standing your ground takes courage. It does, I agreed, feeling a warmth of pride at his recognition. He leaned forward, his expression turning more serious. I've been meaning to talk to you about something, Olivia. I'm opening a second location across town, and I need someone I trust to manage it. Someone with a good head for business and strong leadership skills. I stared at him, hardly daring to believe what he was suggesting. Are you offering me the position? I am, he confirmed. It would mean a significant pay increase, more responsibilities, and equity in the business if things go well. What do you think? I think yes, I said without hesitation. a smile spreading across my face. Absolutely yes. Excellent, Tony beamed, extending his hand to shake mine. We can discuss the details next week. For now, finish those receipts so we can both go home. I completed the task with renewed energy, my mind racing with possibilities. This opportunity was exactly what I needed, a chance to grow professionally, to build something of my own, to step fully into adulthood on my own terms. When I arrived home that night, I found my parents in the living room, looking through old photo albums. They glanced up as I entered, and my mother patted the space on the couch beside her. Come look at these, Olivia. I found them while cleaning out the hall closet. Curious, I joined them. The album was open to photos from when Rebecca and I were young, maybe 5 and 8 years old. In one photo, we were building a sandcastle at the beach, our faces serious with concentration. In another, we were in matching Christmas dresses, Rebecca beaming at the camera while I gazed at something off-screen. You were always in your own world, my mother said, tracing the outline of my distracted face in the photo. So independent even then. There was a note of something like admiration in her voice that I'd rarely heard before. I was just telling your father how proud I am of the woman you've become, she continued, surprising me further. It couldn't have been easy growing up in Rebecca's shadow. I stared at her, stunned by this unexpected acknowledgement. We didn't always do right by you, my father added quietly. We see that now. Better late than never. I guess, I said, unsure how to respond to this sudden display of insight. My mother closed the photo album and turned to face me fully. We heard you coming in. How was work? Actually, really good, I said, deciding to share my news. Tony offered me the manager position at the new restaurant he's opening. It comes with a raise and potential equity in the business. Olivia, that's wonderful, my mother exclaimed, her delight seeming genuine. When do you start? We're still working out the details, but probably next month, after I'm settled in my new place. This calls for a celebration, my father declared, standing up. I think we have a bottle of champagne in the fridge. As he went to retrieve it, my mother took my hand, her expression unexpectedly vulnerable. I know things haven't been perfect between us, she said softly. But I want you to know that I am proud of you, Olivia, and I'm sorry it took recent events for me to see how unfairly we've treated you. The apology, so long awaited, brought a lump to my throat. Thank you for saying that, Mom. My father returned with the champagne and 3 glasses. As we toasted my new opportunity, I felt a shift in our family dynamic, subtle but significant. For the first time, we were celebrating my achievement, my milestone, without any reference to Rebecca or comparison to her accomplishments. It wasn't a complete transformation. Years of established patterns couldn't be undone in a few weeks. But it was a beginning. The night before my move, I was packing the last of my belongings when Rebecca appeared in my doorway. She'd been avoiding me since our parents had scaled back her wedding plans, spending most of her time at Tyler's apartment, or with her bridesmaids. Need any help? She asked, her tone carefully neutral. Sure, I replied, equally cautious. You can pack those books if you want. She nodded and began carefully placing my books in a box. We worked in silence for a few minutes before she spoke again. Tyler and I are looking at houses, she said, after the honeymoon. That's nice, I replied, unsure where this was going. I always thought you'd stay here, she continued, not looking at me as she packed. With Mom and Dad, I never imagined you moving out before me. There was an odd note in her voice, not quite envy, but something adjacent to it. I realised with a start that this was the first major life event where I had preceded her. Things change, I said simply. Rebecca nodded, sealing the box of books. They do. She hesitated, then added, I'm sorry about your car, Liv. I didn't know they were going to do that. It wasn't a full acknowledgement of the deeper issues at play. But from Rebecca, it was significant. I know, I said. And I'm sorry I was so difficult about it afterward. She added, the admission clearly costing her. I was just so focused on the wedding being perfect. It will be perfect, I assured her. Maybe not in exactly the ways you planned, but perfect in the ways that matter. She smiled, a flash of the sister I remembered from before competition and favouritism had driven a wedge between us. Will you help me with the seating chart next weekend? I'm completely stuck on where to put Tyler's weird cousin who doesn't talk to anyone. Sure, I agreed, returning her smile. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was a truce, an acknowledgement that despite everything, we were still sisters, still connected by bonds of shared history and blood. The day of my move dawned bright and clear. My father helped load the few pieces of furniture I was taking, my desk, a bookshelf, a small armchair, into a rented truck. My mother insisted on accompanying me to the new apartment, bringing along a basket of household essentials she'd purchased as a housewarming gift. As we stood in the empty living room of my new place, my father handed me the keys with a solemnity that seemed fitting for the occasion. Your first place, he said. It's a big step. It is, I agreed. We're proud of you, Olivia, my mother said, her eyes suspiciously bright. And we're here if you need anything. I know, I said, and was surprised to find I meant it. Despite everything, they were still my parents, and in their imperfect way, they did love me. After they left, I stood alone in my new apartment, keys in hand, surrounded by boxes and possibilities. The past few months had been a journey I never expected to take, from the shock and betrayal of discovering my car was gone to the empowerment of standing up for myself, from the pain of confronting long-established family dynamics to the tentative hope of forging new, healthier ones. I wasn't naive enough to think all our problems were solved. My parents' favouritism was deeply ingrained, and Rebecca's self-centeredness wouldn't disappear overnight. But something fundamental had shifted, both within our family and within me. I had found my voice, set boundaries, and demanded respect. In doing so, I had discovered a strength I hadn't known I possessed. I had also, paradoxically, opened the door to a more authentic relationship with my family, one based on truth rather than accommodation, on mutual respect rather than silent resentment. As I began unpacking boxes in my new home, I felt a sense of peace and possibility. The road ahead might not be smooth, but for the first time in my life I was choosing the direction. And that made all the difference. Rebecca's wedding arrived in June, as scheduled. It was still an elegant affair, though somewhat less extravagant than originally planned. I stood beside her in the bridesmaid's dress, genuinely happy for her happiness, while also secure in my own path. My parents had paid me back for my car in full by then, making the final payment the week before the wedding. It was a symbolic closing of that chapter, a tangible acknowledgement of their commitment to making amends. After the ceremony, during the reception, my father sought me out where I was chatting with Megan near the bar. "May I have this dance?" he asked formally, extending his hand. As we moved around the dance floor, he said quietly, "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about seeing you. I want you to know that I do see you now. Olivia. And I'm sorry it took me so long." I squeezed his hand, words unnecessary. Later that night, as I watched Rebecca and Tyler drive away amid a shower of rose petals, I reflected on how much had changed in just a few months. What had begun as a shocking betrayal had ultimately led to growth, to healing, to a recalibration of our family dynamics. The old wounds weren't completely healed, and new challenges would certainly arise. But I faced them now from a position of strength and self-respect. No longer the overlooked daughter willing to sacrifice everything for a family that took her for granted. Sometimes it takes losing something valuable, like a car, to gain something invaluable. Your voice, your boundaries, your sense of self-worth. In my case, the trade had been worth it. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments.